So RAM is a word that we've all heard about, but we really don't have any idea what RAM does. All we've known is that RAM goes into computers, it's used for really heavy tasks, and more is generally better. Everybody associates this with generally computers, desktops, laptops, but we're here to talk about the really important place that RAM is being used. And it's not with tablets, it's with smartphones. So everybody's noticed the RAM trend. Smartphone manufacturers have been adding more and more and more RAM, and everybody thinks this is a really good thing. Like, hey, more RAM, I can use my phone for more stuff. My phone's going to be faster. But that's not really what RAM is about. So this video is just going to clarify what RAM actually does and what it's needed for. Now, you'll notice these are a few manufacturers, and these I specifically chose because they have phones with 6 gigabytes of RAM in it, and even Apple is doubling their RAM from the iPhone 5 to the 6 to the 7. But the real big problem is that there are manufacturers introducing 8 gigabytes of RAM, and everybody is going ballistic over this. They think it's the greatest thing ever. So we're actually going to talk about how RAM works in smartphones. We're going to ignore the desktop side of RAM just because although they work similarly, this video is going to be about smartphone RAM. We're going to talk about desktop RAM a little bit in the future. So going back to the focus, RAM is used for your applications. It's also used for a bunch of other things, but we're going to stick with this basic explanation for now. So whenever you open up an app on your device, it actually goes into the RAM. So that's where you get this phrase, the application is stored in memory, stored in RAM. So what this means is that when you click an application and it opens up and it goes into the RAM, it doesn't automatically close. It's still open in the background. You just don't see it, but it's held open. So something a lot of people tend to forget is that Android and iOS itself actually use RAM. So in this case, I'm going to actually show the differences in usage between Android and iOS. And a lot of people wonder how come, iOS can get away with only 2 gigabytes of RAM. That's because at base, the systems themselves, so Android uses 832 megabytes just to operate. iOS only uses about 200 megabytes. That's why iOS is really easy to go and port into older phones, but for this video we're going to stick with Android, just because this is where the main RAM trend is. So you'll also notice that on top of Android there are specific Android skins. So these are Oxygen OS, Samsung's TouchWiz, CyanogenMod is another popular one for modders, and these use a little bit more RAM, so they use about 1 to 1.5 gigabytes of RAM. Sometimes they can even use more. It depends on how heavy the skin is. So a lighter skin would be the OnePlus 3, heavier skins would be Galaxy devices. So with each OS and each skin, there is a different form of memory management. So what this means is that each app, or each OS, not app, will actually kill some of the heavier apps like Facebook. Snapchat is another repeat offender that are just coded poorly, or they have so many features that they're just big RAM hogs. It takes more memory to hold them in memory. But by and large, the OS itself is what takes up most of the RAM. Applications only take up a few megabytes of RAM, and that's why for the limits, I'm actually setting my limit for budget phones, or limits that everybody should get their budget phones at least 2 gigabytes. This gives you enough to run Android, a light skin, and open enough applications. I don't think flagships need to go above 6 gigabytes of RAM. Some of them come with 4, and that is perfectly fine. Even the most recent Google phone, the Pixel, has come with 4 gigabytes of RAM, and it is smooth. It's one of the smoothest phones out there. So you really don't need 6 or 8 gigabytes of RAM to make your phone speedy. That is a myth. So something else I want to point out, this is for Android. This is not for iOS devices. And also, this is as of 2016 December. We're going into 2017 next year, but I feel like 2 gigabytes of RAM should be enough to sustain budget phones for at least another year. And also flagships should be fine for at least 3 to 4 years. I don't see RAM usage increasing unless there is a major breakthrough. So something else that actually might help with those larger apps, more than RAM, is actually storage type. We're going to go over that in another video, but these are some of the common usages or words you might have seen associated with storage type. But for now, this is CRT. Catch you guys later, and I hope you learned something.